Hey guys, so at the time of filming this video, the Rip Curl Pro at Bells Beach has yet to even finish. But as anyone who's looked at the schedule for this year will have realised, the next event at Margaret River starts very soon after. If the WSL decide to run right through the period for Bells Beach, it could run until the 5th of April. The Margaret River waiting period starts on the 8th of April and runs right through to the 19th of April. So unlike my previous video, I'm going to do my fancy surfer picks in two parts. This part will look at my picks based on previous form. Once the Bells event finishes, I will do a final rundown on what team I've actually selected. As we're kind of coming to realise this year, with all the upsets that are going on, it's not just a case of looking at who does well at an event, because there's so many good rookies on tour that those guys and the guys who are on form are taking out the guys you might usually expect to win. So my actual team selections are more based on current form. The rundown I'm going to give in here is based more on previous form at the events, maybe taking into a bit of how people are surfing, but obviously we're not going to know that fully until the actual event's finished. At the time of filming this video, we've just completed round 3 and there's already been a hell of a lot of upsets, so I'm sure there'll be more to come, and we could have a surprise winner who sets himself up on a good roll and performs well at subsequent events like Margaret River. There are 3 different breaks that could be chosen for the event to run at. We've seen 2 of them used a lot in the past. We have the main break, also known as Surfer's Point, about half a kilometre out to sea. It's a big open ocean wave. Although it's a left and right reef break, it's generally seen more as a left-hander. It works in anything from 2 through to 20 foot, so it really could see us surfing any conditions depending on what swell we get. It's more of a peeling point break than a big hollow slabby type wave, but at the end it does go very shallow, and we've seen some incidents in the past with surfers falling, ripping fins out, etc. on that, so it can be quite a dangerous wave. The other option that we've seen used in the past is the box. The box is a shallow, slabby wave. Quite interesting to watch, but the ride's generally about 3 seconds long when successful, but there's a hell of a lot of wipeouts there normally. People taking some major beatings. The reef itself has loads of fingers in it. Not an even smooth landing if you do hit the bottom. Really interesting wave to watch, and one that I hope they do run some of the event in. It's located really close to the main break, so it makes it really easy to run the event and shift everything to that site. The key really is to taking off behind the peak and getting barreled, as with any slab. There's not really much there in terms of manoeuvres, airs, turns, etc. The most notable performer is Josh Kerr, who seems to always put in good results there and just has perfect knack of where to take off. And the third option for the event organisers to run in is North Point, which is new for 2016. The reason for it being put on is that last year when we had the absolutely huge swell, North Point was firing, and because the WSL didn't have a permit to run there, they were unable to move the site and run it there. So they've got the permit this year. Let's hope for some big swell, because it really would be interesting to see it run there. So right hand point break where there'll be massive opportunity for big airs, big barrels, and also turns as well, so it'll be quite entertaining to watch. That said, we have already had 2 right hand point breaks this year, so maybe it makes it a bit more fair and a bit more a mix to have the left hand point break that the main break will give us, and then the slab as well at the box. I think gives us a nice bit of variety to see surfers in different types of conditions. After all, these are the world's best surfers, and we want to see them on a variety of different waves. Here are my 8 surfers that I'd pick if salary cap wasn't an issue and I could choose any 8 surfers and I didn't have to rely on categories. Firstly, Josh Kerr, absolutely amazing record at Margaret River. He finalled in 2014, he got through to round 5 in 2015, and also won it as a prime event in 2010 and was runner-up in 2013. In my opinion, he has the best record of any surfer there, definitely one you need to be putting in your team. Part of the reason for him being so good there is that he's not only got the rail skills required for the main break, he's also really good at the box when the event goes mobile there and it comes down to barrels too. It's a great pick. Next up, John Florence. Again, another surfer that can perform really well if it goes to main break and he has to be on rails. Really good in slabby, barrely waves, and also I think if we went to North Point, he's another surfer that'd do really, really well there when airs are coming into the mix as well. Same goes for Josh Kerr, my last pick too. Again, if he had to throw in airs, he's perfectly capable of doing that. But John Florence's history there, he finalled in 2015. He only got to round 3 the year before, but he was taken out by Gabriel Medina in his unstoppable title year, so I think he can be excused from that, and I do expect to see him probably put in a good show this year. Wave that really suits him, and he appears much more driven and focused than he has done in previous years. One to watch, definitely. Although this might be a bit of a risky decision this year, with his current form and slump that he's in, I'm definitely going to say Kelly Slater would be in my dream selection. In the last 2 years he's finished in the quarters and the semis, and let's face it, in the last 2 years he's not exactly been on a massive roll either. He usually puts in good results there. Maybe it comes down to that factor of him having a bit more drive, focus, and enthusiasm when the waves are big, dangerous and scary, which Margaret River quite often is. Really consistent big waves coming through there. Another risky pick for me, I'm going to go out there and say Burrow would be my dream team. Obviously not surfing too well in 2016 so far, and although he didn't make it past round 3 in 2014, he did get quite a good result in 2015, and he's a local in Margaret River. He did comment in one of his interviews at Bells as well, just as he was leaving the event after being knocked out, that he's really looking forward to getting home, being with the kid, and hopefully that'll bring a bit more out in his surfing. Next up, Adriano De Souza, as with a lot of events, has a really good history there. In 2014, he was taken out in round 5 by the eventual event winner Michel, Bourez, and in 2015 he went on to win the event. Although I wouldn't put Adriano down as a guy who's going to surf really well at the box, not all of the event is likely to run at the box, and I think with his high seeding he'll probably be able to squeeze through some of the events. I don't know how the seeding is going to pan out at the end of this event, but it might be in his interest that he's not going in as #1 seed by that time, because he probably doesn't want to end up against the wildcards in Margaret River, where they're going to have good wave knowledge and the skills to surf waves like the box, which are quite unique waves. Certainly not something Adriano's going to be used to from his time growing up in Brazil, but I do expect he can probably squeak through those rounds and then put on real strong rail turns, which we know he's got in the bigger, more open face wave at Surfers Point. On that point as well, although the box isn't the type of wave you typically have Adriano down as a good surfer, a lot of guys spent the whole heat just getting battered, and he's really comp savvy. He can just pick off the waves that, okay, they might not give him a massive score, but if the other guy's there just getting beaten, he'll pick off the waves which will give him a score and help him get through to the next round. Michel Bourez seems to have come back on form a bit at Bells Beach and has had good results at Margaret River in the past, winning in 2014 and making it to round 5 in 2015. Jordy Smith seems at Bells like he's found his mojo again. He seems like he's back on form. I know that it's quite hard to assess looking at previous results because we've only had 2 events there anyway. He sat out last year in 2015 with a knee injury, but in 2014 when he did compete there, he managed to make it through to the quarters. It looks like, as I say, it looks like he's found his form again at Bells, and I think he can probably put in a good result again, particularly if a lot of the events run at Surfers Point. He's got really strong turns, really big boards. I think it'll really suit that type of wave. But I also think, although it's not his sort of specialist type of wave that you consider him being really good at, a massive help to him over a lot of the goofy competitors. Surfing the box as a goofy footer is notoriously difficult because it's so hard to put yourself behind the peak. It's not the type of wave where you're wanting to slow yourself down and drag like Chopes and Fiji. It's the type of wave where you want to sit as deep as possible and just charge through the pit. He's on his forehand there, so I think although it's not his specialist type of wave, it's a wave that he's got a slight advantage over some of the other competitors, and he ought to surf really well at Surfers Point. Next up, I think Nat Young, looking at previous results, is another really good call. He seems to be on form again with the way he's surfing at Bells Beach, and although the box isn't the type of wave I'd necessarily consider Nat specialising in, his turns are really strong, and again, if a good portion of the events run at Surfers Point, I'd expect him to put a good showing there. And as I say, although I don't necessarily favour him at the box, the event in previous years has run at the box and he's had 2 good results there, so he'd round out my fancy surfer dream team. As I say, the Bells Beach event hasn't even finished yet. I did want to give some surfers to avoid, but it's kind of difficult at the moment, partly because a lot of the good guys have gone down really early at Bells Beach, and because the breaks at Margaret River differ quite significantly to the events we've had so far, it's hard to give you any advice based on form. Looking back at previous results, again, there's only been 2 events there, so it's quite difficult, but Wilkinson was one I was going to say to avoid. He's had a good run of form up until now, but Margaret River is an entirely different wave. If we're on the open face wave at Surfers Point, he's unlikely to be on his backhand, and that really is his weapon. If we're at the box, surfing the box as a backhand surfer, notoriously difficult and not something I'd particularly class Matt as great at. That said, he's on a massive roll and he might be one you include in your team. If you got him cheap at the start of the year on the Surfer Mag version, you might want to keep him in your team, bearing in mind that Rio's up next after the Margaret River event, on the basis that he probably will put in a good performance there. So you might want to take the hit for the one event and think forward. Something I do quite a lot with my team, and something I will be considering after the Bells event. One final point that I do want to touch on is that a lot of the pros aren't used to surfing these types of waves, and the wildcards in the event can often throw up some upsets. I wouldn't be surprised to see more given how many we've already had this year. Jay Davies last year, a local from West Oz, made it really deep into the contest, and in part 2 of my fancy surfer picks, once the Bells event's finished, I will talk about the wildcards because I do think there's something that's going to be important to consider. I may change even the dream team picks that I've just gone through. As I say, this is part 1 to a 2-part video. There will be a second part coming once the Bells event's over and we know what the form is. If the Bells event, they push it through and we finish in the next few days, which I don't think we will, I will get the video up fairly shortly. If we run right through until the end of the Bells waiting period, I will make sure part 2 is up before the Margaret River waiting period begins, so you can see what my team is and my final selections for the event. Please do press subscribe so you can be notified when the video's up. I'd love to know what your comments and suggestions and picks are for the event too, so please put them in the comments box below. If you want to see more videos like this, please press like, and I'll make sure videos are up before every event and with my tips, suggestions and advice about the event. Cheers guys, see you soon.